Hey, this is JC Navarro, and welcome to the Pro Talk podcast brought to you by Housecall Pro, the app that tens of thousands of home service professionals use all across the country. In this episode, you're going to meet Summer Douglas and Stephen Connor, owners of DC Appliance Service out of Dallas, Texas. We hope that this episode provides hope for you during this time of crisis, as well as provide you strategies on how to grow your business. Let's welcome Stephen and Summer. Why don't you guys tell us about how did you start your business?
Well, hello, JC, and thank you for having us on a podcast. So I'll let you start.
With how I started the business. Yeah. Well, I've been in business, started in air conditioning 22 years ago, did service, installs, everything, kind of got burned out doing that, then got into doing appliance repair. Did that for 10 years, working for 2 different companies, and finally decided one day it's time to go out on my own. Made the decision with our oldest daughter, which was aging out of high school, which is disabled and it's disability. And I'll let Summer kind of get better.
Add in. Yeah. In last May is when she aged out. And so leading up to that, we were, just really like any parent with a disabled child, wondering, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do when she ages out and there's nowhere for her to go every day? And I was teaching at that point. I've done many things throughout the years. I have a degree in architecture and did lighting design, still do some lighting design on the side. But I had been teaching for 7 years at that point, and I had hoped that, in some way, maybe, teaching would allow me enough flexibility, but it really just wasn't. And I had tried coming up with maybe some businesses that I could run myself and stay home, and none of those were really panning out. So when he decided, I'm ready, why don't we start a business? It was really perfect timing for him to decide that, because that was December of 2018. And so he was able to basically put in his 2 weeks notice right before we were going on a cruise on vacation. And then when we came back from the vacation, he started it up. So he was doing almost everything on his own. I was still teaching. So it was nice to have that buffer of 6 months or so where I was helping as much as I could, but I was still teaching, and he was growing from nothing to something.
Wow.
And it was just a really good transition. So when June came around, it was really great to have the freedom also of knowing that, okay, we're going to make this work. We know we can do it. We've seen other people do it. He knows people who have done the same thing. And we just knew that it would be fine for Katie. No matter what came along for our oldest daughter, we could do it. It just opened up that part of our lives. So we didn't have to worry about it anymore. And we could worry about the business instead.
Right. Have you guys always been entrepreneurial in terms of your mindset?
I don't think so.
No, I've worked for like smaller companies and been involved, like service management, installations, doing the air conditioning, been, the lead technician all the way through. So it's just been one that I've always been put in that higher category. So been there. So it's that's where it all came from, I guess, to be able to know I was capable to jump out and go do it.
Yeah, I imagine that with a growing family, who was I talking to? It was Rodney out in Kansas City, All Hours Heating and Cooling. And he was talking about how he was actually doing appliance repair for different companies. And at the time, he knew that he wanted to do something of starting his own business. He had these constant thoughts of like, oh, I could totally do it different and I could do it way better had it, if it were under my kind of authority and leadership. But one of the things that he understood wisely during that season was that his family needed the insurance and the benefits with a growing family. And so each business owner has their different thought process of when did it come across your mind that, you know what, one day I'm going to have my own business?
It was pretty quick, into that 2018. I was kind of just sitting at home. I was actually, because she was out doing her lighting design, I was just thinking, and just knew time was, we're needing to make decisions and pretty quick. And it was just.
And I think we've thought about it before, but before it was always like, no way. It was just a block,
Right.
And so it just took that pressure of needing to make a decision bubbling up that finally got us over the block, and when he said it to me, I was like, yep, let's do it. There was no hesitation.
Yeah. It sounded like it was stewing for a while, and you're like, push comes to shove, we got to do something. We've done it a certain way for so long, and we've just got to adjust with what's coming.
Mm-hmm. And with the experiences we've had along the way, we just felt ready at that point, working, like he said, I've worked for small companies, big companies, and I'm a big proponent of, if you're not happy with where you are, then go find something, go, make changes. And so I think, I don't know, it's just like at some point you have to learn how to trust yourself to break that barrier down. And sometimes that means you have to have some pressure to realize I can do this, and it helped that Stephen has worked with other people who went out on their own and created a successful business. And he was able to talk to them and lean on them.
Right. Yeah, that's a constant, is making sure, I've got a guy that I worked with doing appliances that went out on his own. He helped me kind of get started but the one thing is, I've got Corey, but I can always, if I get frustrated or something, I can call him. He's who I originally basically worked in air conditioning with. And actually, he uses Housecall Pro now, which I didn't know it till not long ago. And he's just basically like a mentor. He's big brother type. I can call him and he'll give me that information to push along or kind of help each other out all the time. So.
And then once we got going, it was just like, we were lucky to have started with Housecall Pro, in that we found even more people to lean on.
Right.
And that's really, I think, where we learned how to think about growing the business, or, how to treat certain situations that came along that I never knew, we would be dealing with. He probably had a clue, but I really didn't. So between the people we already knew and then just meeting incredible people that also use Housecall Pro, we've really relied on that to get where we are, so far. We're still so new, really.
Right. Yeah, but it seems like you've so wise, right? I was talking to my wife about this just the other day, and we were talking about how, if people just asked other people, like, what do you do? When I would travel to different cities, like, when I was in Dallas with you guys for our Lady Pro conference, and we threw that conference out there, I have this Uber driver, and it doesn't matter who the Uber driver is. I want to learn a little bit about them. And then if I find something good, I'm going to be like, well, what's your secret? So if I find out that they've been married for 40 years, I'm like, what's your secret? Right. And so there's just so much strength in being in a community. And I too, obviously I love Housecall Pro, and I love the community that we have that, yes, there's a bunch of people who use our software, but at the same time, there's a community of people that are willing to help, and they're not about this idea of like, well, you're just going to have to learn on your own. It's like, learn from my mistakes. I've done this for 20 years. You're in year 3. This is how you should do this. This is how you should pivot. And one of the things I love. So I'm agreeing with you. Yeah. Is looking back to 2018 to where you are today, is it Is it what you thought it was?
Not exactly.
And why is that? What were your expectations? What did you think jumping into it? And then what has maybe surprised you?
Well, there's times probably thought that the money would be better, but no, it's not. It's the stress would be less. No, it's not. It's probably more because, as we have employees, got to not only worrying about what you're doing, you're also worrying about what other people are doing. That gets more stressful. And so you've got to learn how to step away and kind of not, once we walk out of here and get done, to kind of separate the difference. But other than that, I'm enjoying it. So it's the one thing. I'm not saying I hadn't made the phone call to her yet saying, did we make the right decision?
Yeah,
You haven't said it out loud.
I haven't said it out loud.
Well, what you're saying is you still wouldn't you wouldn't trade it for the world.
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. But it's just like anything else that's new. Even though he's been in the business or whatever, it's still new. So you do as much as you can, and you grow along the way. Because if we had known in December of 2018 all the things that went along with starting a business, I don't know if we would have done it, or I don't know if we would have done it on our own, or I don't know if we would have felt as prepared as we felt.
Right.
But we just learned along the way, and then you learn a little more, so you do a little more, and you learn a little more, so you do a little more. And, I'm no stranger to that. That's fine. But when you look back, you start to realize this isn't what I thought it was going to be. There's a lot more involved that you just can't understand until you actually live it. You just can't,
Yeah. What has been the greatest piece of advice that you feel like you've learned as you have been growing with your company?
Greatest piece of advice.
While he's thinking about that, I'll mention something. I don't know if it's really advice, but in those first few months after I started taking on the role of co-owner, right? So after June, I was in Housecall Pro constantly on the Facebook group, right? And somebody mentioned how much being a business owner feels like being on a roller coaster, maybe even in just one day. So in just one day, this person was saying they may wake up feeling at a high point. Things are great, things are awesome. And then part of the day, what am I doing? Why am I even doing this? And then somewhere in between, and then going back up and down. And at that point, I hadn't experienced that. Everything was great. Everything just felt awesome. I was in love with it. I was in love with everything I was doing. It didn't matter if it was mundane tasks or something really interesting. It was just great. And then one day, I don't remember the day, but one day I remember thinking, oh, yep, this is like a roller coaster. It's just a bad day, I guess, and those hit you hard. The bad days are hard to deal with. And it doesn't matter if you have 100 really awesome days and then 5 minutes of hard. It's a hard crash.
Yeah.
It's just rough. But then you wait it out and go back up again, and it becomes easier over time because you understand the bigger picture. But in the moment of the low, it's, especially the first time you feel it, it's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely. She'll call me sometimes and I'll be like, just destroy. It feels like it almost destroys your day. But if you just stop and just realize, oh yeah, okay, let's move to the next one. We'll talk about that one later, and just keep on rolling with it. And yeah, it is definitely a roller coaster. So.
When it comes to roller coasters, obviously we as a country are facing a roller coaster, right? This COVID-19 crisis. How's that been for you guys out there in Texas? Hearing the news, having to adjust to different things. What was your reaction when you first heard of some of the the rules and regulations and the non-essential and the essential jobs?
Well, it was tough. I pretty much, we do some home warranty work and things, pretty much with them. I set them before any orders were in. I went ahead and started limiting back. You know what? I knew it was going to happen. So started preparing ourselves of what was essential in appliance repair. We could go without a dishwasher. You can go without a microwave. So I'm not going to do certain, there's no sense in putting us in customers' houses for something that's not essential. I started preparing before, the rules were on. And I think that helped us a lot that, yes, I could still today, because it's considered essential for some reason, go work on somebody's dishwasher. But you know what? You got a sink that's working right next to it that can wash your dishes. I'm not going to put one of my guys out there to take that chance, because they may not catch it in your house, but if they have to stop and get gas on the way to go to your house and some reason catch it, if they could have avoided that a different way, then that's the way to do it. So.
Yeah. And it's been, and especially at the beginning when we didn't know where things were going to land, if they were going to consider us essential or not, it's just a lot of questions in the beginning, a lot of what's going to happen. And we felt like we had no control, of course, obviously. And then we're still wondering that, is it going to change again? Are they going to have to limit us more? Are we going to get limited because one of us is going to get it?
Right. Yeah.
We live together. So if one of us gets it, if I get it, that kind of puts him out. And so I guess 3 weeks ago now, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we generally have a weekly meeting here in our home office, and we stopped that. So no more, we don't physically come in contact with, we have one other employee, he's our son, and we do not come in contact with him at all. So we get parts delivered here, and then we put them outside and he comes and gets them. And we are just doing digital meetings with him as well, because if he gets it, we can't afford for the whole company to go down. If we are going to stay in business, then we need to be able to stay in business.
If we get it, then we can at least keep him out there working, hopefully, and we can stay home and run the office, or vice versa. If I get it or he gets it, he can stay home and I can keep working.
We can legitimately say, well, we haven't been in contact with each other, so the business isn't going down.
Right.
And it's a constant question then of, ethically speaking, should we even be continuing business? It's just every day, it's a completely different roller coaster ride, I guess.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, every day you're just hoping that good news happens and maybe we can be alleviated from the strictness of this quarantine, self-quarantining and all that, social distancing. How has, you've shared a little bit about the adjustments that you've made for your company to continue to grow, right? Limiting contact with even your employees and doing Zoom meetings, digital meetings, how you take care of your parts and you set them outside. And so there's no contact there. How has it been with your customers?
Customers have been, she sends a message out every morning. I don't even know what exactly the message says.
Oh,
she
yeah.
probably can tell
you. Want me to read it?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Pull it up.
Yeah. So instead of asking people a whole lot of questions when they schedule, I like to send this message out the morning that we are going out there. That way things can change between, the day that they scheduled and the day that we're actually going out there. And when I first started doing this, it seemed like things were changing on an hourly basis, right? So this is kind of my way of saying, hey, we really are coming today. We're still in business. And I'll just read it. I got it pulled up. So it says, good morning. DC Appliance is open and operating as usual today and for as long as we can. Due to COVID-19, we are using added sanitary precautions such as using hand sanitizer before and after entering your home, wearing disposable gloves, and disinfecting wipes as needed. Please help the technicians practice social distancing while in your home. Let us know if you have any special requests for entering or working in your home. And please reschedule if you are experiencing any symptoms related to COVID-19. And then my signature. So that way, that day, they're thinking about it. It's fresh on their mind. If they all of a sudden became ill, it gives them a chance to let us know, which has happened twice, I think. And a lot of customers reply with, hey, we're doing great here. And, thank you for, thank you for sending out this message. Thank you for doing this. Whatever. So.
Which customers are doing great. We get there, make sure I'm wearing the gloves, put the gloves on, carry the Clorox or Lysol wipes with me, wiping everything down. We actually this week started wearing masks into the customer's house. We fresh masks forever. They're just cloth, but wear them fresh into each customer's house. Customers are staying pretty good, which is kind of nice. They stay in the other room away from us, let us get in there and do our job, talk through the wall to them. And so it's been kind of nice. But other than that, pretty much it's try to get in, get out. Don't sit around and hang out. I am the type of person that will sit and talk to a customer sometimes. And all of a sudden, 15 minutes later, it's like, oh, I need to get going down the road. Yeah. But now it's, I'm in, get my job done, tell them what's going on and get going. Try to keep that distance away from them. And, that way they feel comfortable as well as us being in there. So,
yeah.
And we had a couple customers reply with actual special requests, I think one pretty much let him into her garage and the refrigerator was in the garage. So that was super easy for her. Or they'll say, call when you get here so we can leave the door unlocked and you can just come on in, things like that. I think it's really, really, really important for strong communication with the customers, of course, and they respond well. I would say knock on wood, complaints have gone down, even though people are stressed out and crazy. We're enough weeks in now that people are getting used to this other normal, right? This interim normal, because we're not even to our new normal yet, right? So, people are getting used to it and they seem more nice, right? Like more friendly than they ever have been before.
Yeah, dealing with the complexities of all of that in your company, I can only imagine how you're trying to keep yourself safe while also keeping your customers feeling safe and respecting their space and being as clear as you could possibly be, getting the awkward out of the way. It sounds to me that you guys haven't been hurting for business, that like things have been pretty good for you guys.
It's been good. It's had its ups and downs. We've had a few times, like last week, I think on Friday we came to Friday and didn't really have much scheduled for the next week and was kind of like, oh no, what's going on? And not much came in over the weekend. And we had about half days on Monday scheduled. Then all of a sudden, Monday afternoon, it broke loose again and things started.
Week. Yeah. It was weird. We did take a hit at first and then it's been up and down. And it's been different. So it used to be that Mondays and Fridays were really busy for calls coming in for dispatching. And now it's the opposite. Mondays and Fridays aren't that busy. And the middle of the week is busier when we're busy. We're 3 or 4 weeks in now and it's just hit or miss. It's still like, we don't know what's going on. At any moment, we feel like we might have to make a decision, about the business. Like, to bring things down, like, are we going to have to go down to 4 days a week? And then we start thinking about that and then the calls come in. So it's just really constantly evaluating what's going on. And we're, like I said, we're such a new business that
it's all new to us no matter what. This is just I think this is going to be, we survive, when we survive this, I won't say if, when we survive this, I think it's going to help us get even further. It's going to be one of those that, oh yeah, now we know we've answered all these questions in this little time. Okay, this is how we got to handle it.
Mhm.
So,
and we're just hoping we get our EIDL emergency funds. And if we get that, then we'll feel a lot more confident. We won't feel like we're constantly having to evaluate on a daily basis what our numbers are. Because that's what it is now. It's like, what were the numbers today? So we know what we're doing tomorrow.
Right. It speaks to what I feel is this lack of rhythm. I was just talking to a friend of mine. It's like, man, it just feels like, it is Easter on yesterday, right? As we're filming this on a Monday. It just didn't feel the same. And you think about your rhythm, and I'm working from home myself. My kids are at home doing school. My wife is at home doing school, and you just feel a little rhythmless, right? There's this one day I just said out loud, man, I just want to go to the mall and eat some pretzels and just walk around. So something as normal and as boring as could possibly be. And yet we're just in this place where I bet people are just trying to figure out their rhythms, which is offsetting all these other rhythms that we are used to, right? You as business owners, what are some, I know you guys have plans because you guys are big picture thinkers. What are some of the plans that you're thinking that could be options as this continues to go, or hopefully go away? Like soon go away.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully, get at least one more guy working in with us. It's our goal, which we had hired somebody, and knock on wood, that didn't work out.
But thankfully, really, because we couldn't have handled that, I don't think, with all of this going on.
Yeah.
But, tell me about that. You guys were going to hire someone, put someone on?
Well, we actually did back in December. And that lasted, about a month, almost 60 days.
And remember, Stephen started the company a year ago, January. I started working full time in June 1st. And then we hired our son like June.
Yeah,
middle of June. And so it took us until December before we decided, okay, we're ready. The work's coming in. We're ready to grow. We want to grow.
Right.
We want to, right?
So it's, as everybody knows, is you get applications, and people.
I'm glad I can.
Some are a joke. You just, as soon as you start reading them, you just, as fast as you started, you throw it right in the trash. But we had one. It was a great interview. Everything seemed great about it, but
perfect.
People lie. Can we say that?
Yeah, we can't say a whole lot.
Yeah, let's just say that.
And it didn't work out.
It didn't work out.
But thankfully, also considering the situation.
Yes, very thankfully. And it was his decision to leave. So it was all fine and good in the end. And now we can laugh about some things that went on.
Yeah. That was a good learning step for us. That was something that we learned a lot off of. It was basically, in which I think we did great in our end, is we really did good, like the 30-day, making sure.
Well, luckily, we had our people to consult in this process, all the way from how do we find somebody to, okay, we found somebody, now what do we do with them? Right. So we had, some people in Housecall Pro and Lady Pros that helped us out with that. And I did my research as far as, what documentation to do. And it's expensive to hire somebody, which is something I never really knew. Just finding somebody can be expensive. Doesn't have to be, but it can be. And then there's all these things that go along with it, including the fact that we supply a vehicle and we supply shirts, and it's just little things that add up. So it was an expensive learning process.
Yeah.
in many ways.
Which ended up working out, right? Hindsight
Yes.
in 2020.
It worked out. And now we know a whole lot and we can start fresh with hiring. And we were actually in the hiring process when all this stuff came crumbling down. And it's funny because we had 2 people we hadn't interviewed yet, but we were ready to interview them. And we were in the middle of kind of scheduling that. And it wasn't like we even had to contact them to say, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't do this. All communication both ways.
We had one contact us a week or 2 ago.
And then last week, one of them contacted us to see, how we were doing. So he'll be the first one we call when we are ready, and we're going to be ready. But as far as planning, we are still in it depends on if we get these government funds that are being, promised. And if we don't, then we're going to be kind of really just taking it day by day, like we were in the beginning. It's almost like going back to last year. If we do get those funds, then I feel like we'll be able to bounce back very quickly and hire immediately. As soon as they start lifting some of the, whatever we're calling them,
restrictions.
Yeah. Some of those restrictions, then we would be able to hire immediately.
I was talking to Texas Medley a couple weeks ago, and he kind of said something that you said. It's like before, when he started his business, the phone just didn't ring. It was like several days where he just wouldn't get a call, and then business started picking up, and then we fast forward to talking about the current situation that we're in, and he's actually dealing with a different situation where some of his employees cannot work or have elected not to work for various reasons, right? In terms of how they're facing this COVID-19 thing. But he's like, it's like starting all over again, only the phone is actually ringing all the time, and I don't know what to do. So
because it's starting to get hot here in Texas, and that's the thing. AC season is at its starting point, then it's going to just keep going,
Yeah, we need our air conditioners around here.
Right. Was the process of filling out like the applications and all that stuff for the government for small business, was that a complex process? What was that process like for you guys?
No, it was the first time I filled out what's being referred to as the EIDL loan. It actually was kind of complex, and it was kind of unnerving because we're so new and it wanted documents that we don't really have yet, because at that time we hadn't filed taxes for 2019 yet because they weren't due yet, and our tax person hadn't done them yet, and we don't have any taxes for 2018. That's not a thing for us. We weren't around then. So it wanted those documents, even though it said you didn't have to have them. So there were some things that weren't very clear. They weren't communicated very clear, but I just improvised, and instead of where you were supposed to scan in the forms or your tax documents, I just wrote a letter of why we don't have those and scanned that in, and then filled out everything as best I could. It was just, it was a lot of information, but it wasn't too bad. And then it wasn't much different than a loan application, really, except that it wanted his information, my information, and the company information. So like 3 loan documents. Submitted that, and then within, I want to say, days, people started talking about a new loan process. So within days of getting that submitted, the SBA had created a whole new website with a simplified version of this loan application. So I didn't do the simplified version. I did that one. And we then received an email about, hey, if you want the 10K advance, please go to this website. So I did that. And that was a simplified version. It was very easy. It was pretty much on your honor. I need this. Here's my bank account information for a direct deposit. No, the first one I did was like March 23rd. Then that one, I don't know, it was maybe 10 days later. We have received nothing. And the what's called the PPP, so the Paycheck Protection Program, which we will also be applying for, our bank isn't taking applications on yet. So we're still in limbo.
Yeah, kind of waiting.
Easy, might be hard. I don't know.
Right. Switching gears to maybe get a laugh here during what is a challenging time as we are in the waiting. I'd like to get into what we call the new segment, Bad Review Time. And this is the time where our pros read a horrible review and they share with us how they responded. Well, first they share how they felt, and then they share how they actually responded. So I think you came prepared for this one. So why don't you read us? Well, actually, you brought 2 reviews. So why don't you read us 2 of your reviews, please?
Okay. So we'll start with the one we really don't like. So it's really short, though. It says, they failed 3 times to repair my washing machine and flooded my house each time. Now, this was a situation that was 35 weeks ago. This is a situation.
Steven's like, that felt like it was yesterday.
Yeah, still does.
It was a situation where at the time we were very heavily invested in this customer, because at the first repair, when the technician left, his washer was fine. Okay, so it was hours after the technician left that the customer is running the washer and it's flooding his house. Okay, it flooded his house before we ever went out there. Who knows how many times? I really don't know. So and this is a Friday night, we get this call. We're closed. We're at Best Buy shopping, actually. And this customer is texting me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what? Completely freaked out. I can't believe this is happening. And this is kind of a cool story. It could have been such a great story, because we were able to Saturday morning send him and the technician out to go take a look at this, try to figure out what's going on. And he calls me and says, hey, get on the Housecall Pro app and find someone who can come clean his floors and we'll pay for it. Okay. We're like, we don't even care if we're at fault. It doesn't even matter. This happened. Let's just take care of him. And so I found somebody through the Housecall Pro app. It worked brilliantly. This person was able to get out there that day. It was a Saturday, and get going on it. And we felt so good about it, right? And I think they had to order some parts.
Right.
And so they got the parts on order, went back out, got it fixed. It was working. Then I don't know how much later, hours or the next day. I think it was hours later.
Yeah, he was washing all those towels. I'll say that.
So it might have been customer abuse that was causing the flooding. Like, we're repairing the washer and then it's
Basically,
being
it was
overloaded.
ripping the hose off the bottom of a washer. Is what was constantly happening. And I've done my research into it. It was an LG washer. Don't ever buy one, because they're known for it. From what I've actually known, is once the hose comes off, the machine is trash. You're never going to get the hose to stay back on, which didn't have that experience before, which after looking at it, like, yeah, makes sense.
I'm gonna have to go look at my my washing machine now, because I do own an LG.
Oh no.
and also, this was probably good that it happened to us fairly early on, right? Because we didn't really have terms and conditions written out. And so that spurred me on to, it's like, whoa, people, if we're dealing with an appliance that uses water, has a water line to it, your appliance might fail at no fault of ours and flood your home. It's a possibility. If it is our fault, we'll gladly take care of whatever we need to take care of, but it's a possibility. So please don't walk away. Like if you've been having your appliance repaired, don't, just because it's fixed doesn't mean it's really, like, the appliance could still fail again at no fault to ours. It's
Right.
just, it's mechanical, right? So anyways, this happened a series of times with this customer. And so we were we had to go through insurance because it became so expensive. We couldn't just cover it out of pocket. And so we learned how to go through insurance. We learned that we needed terms and conditions to fall back on for insurance purposes, because even the insurance company never said, this is your fault. They said, it's in everyone's best interest if we just paid for this, because it's not really that much money. And so this will overall be the best decision. So they paid for everything.
And lesson learned for terms and conditions.
Right. And even after that, he just, this review that he wrote was after all of that. It was after the insurance covered everything was handled, and he still wrote this review. So it hurt a lot because we were very heavily invested. Very. So it didn't come as a complete surprise, though, because he had been texting that he was not happy. So our reply was, we are very sorry you have had this unusual and unfortunate experience with your washer. We hold our company to a high standard, which is why we have taken care of all resultant damages per your request.
Way to go. What a simple, direct response. That was very, very methodical.
Yes. And for anybody who does get a bad review, I would suggest just Google it, responses to bad reviews, and look through a variety of examples and then come up with your own, something in your own words. But they're out there. There's a lot of examples out there to help you a lot.
Which I'm sure maybe sometimes people want to write a heck of a lot more, and then they shave it down just a little bit to do the right thing.
Yeah. Well, and the important thing we knew from researching it that way was, this is an opportunity to show people how you handle the experience, right? It's an opportunity to show what kind of company you are. So that's how we thought about it. It's really hard to do that, but once you get used to it, I guess it gets easier. But the first one that was our first one, and it was rough.
Yeah.
So
because we did, just like she put in there, we took care of everything, and he couldn't come back and say, no, you didn't, because he knows we did. So
yeah, because that was another thing before we actually published it, was what could he say back, and there was anything he could say back would just make him look worse.
Which is why he didn't respond.
Right, exactly.
So you say you said that it gets easier, and that was your first one. Did the second one, was that easier?
Yeah. So the second one was easier because I knew what we needed to do. I didn't even have to ask anybody. I knew what to do, right? And we had more. But some of the deal with a negative review is your total overall score, right? If you're not going to have a 5.0, you want it to be a 4.9. So if you only have 3 positive, the earlier on you get bad reviews, the worse off it is, right? So the other one came later, and it was a very strange experience where I was sitting in the office and I got a phone call from a customer while the technician was in the home. And the customer I don't even know how to explain it. She was frantically upset. It was very chaotic conversation, and I didn't expect it, right? I didn't know any of this was coming, and I answered the phone, and she started screaming that my technician, I don't even remember everything she said, but she was trying to tell me that she was arguing with him over the dishwasher. So he went to repair the dishwasher because it wasn't cleaning her dishes. And apparently he looked at the dishes and the dishwasher and tested it, and it was cleaning the dishes. The dishes were visually clean dishes, which she wasn't arguing with. She was telling him they smelled dirty.
Gotcha. So then?
So that technician, and this is probably where it actually broke down, is they were arguing about it at her house in her kitchen.
They smell fine.
To the point where he's like, I don't smell anything. And she's holding this plastic Tupperware, you know, like, it smells dirty. It is dirty, you know, and she even brought her kids out to prove him wrong. And then she called me, and I guess she wanted me to get him to service the dishwasher. I don't know. But at that point, he was basically packing up his stuff and leaving because of the hostility, right? And she hung up on me. I mean, I didn't even barely get to respond other than like, I'm sorry, what? You know, like, wait, what? And so hers was, the young man was very unprofessional. The business should not be operating. When I called their direct line, the lady over the phone disregarded my complaint. The tech diagnosed a problem and said he couldn't fix it before looking at my appliance. Horrible, would never recommend to anyone. So I got drug in on that one.
Steven, what did you think, man? You're kind of quiet over there.
Well, that one, that's not me. That was another one.
So first thing he says, it wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
That is always a hard battle. And, you know, and that's the number one thing that people complain about, are their plastic smelling or plastic not clean. Well, plastic doesn't belong really in a dishwasher anyway. So when you walk into something like that, you're in a losing battle. Because, well, then too, is it's a home warranty customer. You're never going to get that call when a customer is going to pay for it, in my opinion. If you think my dishes are smelling bad, you got a home warranty, you're going to call your home warranty company to come out and fix it. Versus you don't, you're going to get on Google and you're going to Google how to clean my dishwasher. And there's 1,000 ways to do it. You can run it through cleaning. That's how you're going to clean it. You're going to run vinegar through it, things like that, and try to clean it. But once your plastic gets a smell, you're never getting rid of it. So,
but what if that's like a prized heirloom, man? What if the plastic has been passed down for generation to generation?
And so there's other things going on there, because it's a home warranty customer. It's kind of a good thing, because that technician, if the situation were more calm, should have been able to say, I don't see a problem here, but since this is a home warranty call, you can get a second opinion from another company.
Right.
And that is what he was telling her, but it was just argumentative, right?
Yeah.
And not good. So, and then there's also the truth of the matter is not everybody has the same sense of smell. That's just the truth. Some people can smell certain things other people can't smell, right? And so he is like, I can't smell it, but maybe this one could have smelled it. I don't know, right?
Maybe he had a cold that day, you know?
Yeah.
His nose was stuffed up.
So that one was bewildering. And that one, I distinctly remember thinking, well, if people are going to leave us bad reviews like this, like, we're going to be getting bad reviews. Who knows how many bad reviews we're going to get? It's not even an honest review. At least be honest, right? So this one I replied with, I used the unusual and unfortunate. We're very sorry you have had this unusual and unfortunate experience with one of our technicians servicing your dishwasher. We hold our company to a high standard, which is why we have made it a priority to work together with your home warranty company to move forward with providing a satisfactory solution in this manner. So, I tried to be specific on that one and, mention the dishwasher and the fact that it was a home warranty customer. And speaking of that, that's a really good tip. If you service home warranty customers mixed in with what we call collect customers or COD or any other lead sources. It was about this time. No, before this, she must have searched us up separately, but we don't send out a request for reviews to home warranty customers because we don't have complete control over the scheduling process
and decisions being made and things like that. Plus, they're already getting, like, after we leave there and we're done with it, they get a request for review from that home warranty company. So bombarding them with.
Yeah. So we just let the home warranty customers review us through the home warranties site. And we use tags for that. The Housecall Pro tags. You can set it so that it doesn't send a review request to certain tags. Right. And we've also set up an unhappy tag. So if the technician is out at a customer's house that is a collect customer and they're unhappy, they can type that tag in before they finish the job, unhappy, and then they won't get a review request. That's so, yeah. Yeah. But then you get a customer like this particular customer wouldn't have received a review request. She specifically sought us out. And I think she reviewed us on multiple places. I think both customers reviewed us on multiple places. So that really stinks because with Yelp, which is where I snagged this review from, we don't have a whole lot of reviews on Yelp. Most of our reviews are on Google or in Housecall Pro. So just one bad one in Yelp is not good.
Right. Yeah, you guys have given us so much wisdom and experience, and one of the things I love is the humility that you bring. That you're like, we are growing as a company, we are adjusting where we need to adjust. There's some challenging things that we're facing, and yet we keep on going, and we wait, and we keep on going. So, as we're closing our time here, what are some words of encouragement that you might be able to provide for our pros that are out there?
Well, I started this year, my word of the year was aspire, because I was aspiring to grow the business. This was going to be a great year for us as far as growth. And we learned so much last year that, I wanted to aspire to that, right? And so with all the things that have gone on, it's been really important to take that word and say, okay, I can still aspire. We're going to aspire to stay in business. We're going to aspire to stay in business. So I think it's really important to be able to adjust, see what's going on. And if you're not happy with it, like I said before, figure out how to change things so that you can be happy with it. What is acceptable, and don't be afraid to change it again. Every time you need to.
I think you did good.
Awesome.
You're a motivational speaker.
Yeah. So yeah.
And she said that you were going to do all the talking, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
she's better talker.
But all of it, such good stuff. Thank you so much for your time and just being generous with all of the wisdom that you've grown to have and just building your business. And we just really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been our pleasure. Thank you for putting all this together, even in times like this. Right.
Well, thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. For more information, please go to housecallpro.com/coronavirus.